Hey guys, happy Wednesday, June 12th. Not quite 10 o'clock here at night. Wanted to just touch base with y'all. I haven't left a video for a few days, and a couple of things came to light today that I thought were pretty interesting. And a lot of times when I do these videos, sometimes to stay in touch with folks, let folks know I'm still okay. Miss Thelma follows on here as opposed to Facebook. Sometimes it's I hope to get a message across, and I think I might have a small one tonight. But sometimes, believe it or not, this is kind of my own little therapy. Sometimes I just talk, and talking to you all, it's just a way for me to communicate and maybe get some things off my chest that again, I'm a pretty deep thinker and try to reconcile. So I'm going to touch a little bit on that tonight as well. Um, I was going to do the video in the morning when it was a little more fresh, but like I said, I feel kind of compelled. I want to try to be very sensitive or careful with what I say, but it also goes back to some things that occurred on the journey. So anyway, on a real positive, something that took place, and this is just a lesson out there for maybe some young parents that I learned tonight over the last couple of days. So I talk about my kids a lot on here, and the summer's one of the reasons why I've been delayed to some degree in getting the book completed. I spent a lot of time at the ball field with my son in the summer. He's got this weekend will be busy, and then the following weekend is his final tournament of the year, and then we'll be moving on. And he's a good little ball player, and it's fun to go, and he loves it. So there's a lot worse things that could be done in life. And yet, into the fact that I missed so much of it last year, it's really important for me to be there. Uh, but this was pretty interesting. So if you follow my videos, I've talked pretty openly about my kids, and I try to be as real as I can as a parent and look at the positives and the negatives of my children. When they mess up, they mess up, and um, I've talked about my son maybe dealing with some adversity, not in the best way from time to time, and maybe even seeing a little bit of distraction here. But it's really a beautiful thing when you see some growth or some change, and I've seen that recently. But how I saw it is really what is. I mean, maybe somebody else can understand if they're ever given the opportunity. And so my son plays for a little league team, the York Young Revolution here in Pennsylvania. It's a minor league ball club that has this little league program. Well, in his age group, the 9U group, there's two different teams, and he's played on one team for a couple of years now, and he loves it. Team's great, coaches are great, parents are great, a lot of fun. But he's who he already is. He's landing, and he's landing on the team, and he kind of seems in his role. All the kids do, when you play with the same team year round for a couple of years, everything sort of becomes customary practices and things like that. Well, the second team, the other York Rev team, I guess, had for whatever the reasons needed some extra players towards the end of the year, and the coach, I spoke with him, and he asked if Landon would come down. And so Landon's played the last couple of days with this other team, and there's two things to be said for that. One is this other team is a 9U team, and I'm not sure why. I think they got kind of arranged and started late in the, let's say, enrollment process. So they play in a league where the other kids are older. The other teams are a year or two older than them. And at a young age, a year or two is a world that's night and day. So the other teams, are pretty talented. This team's pretty talented, but they get beat pretty good. And when you're used to winning, losing is no kids like to lose. It's a hard thing to accept. Um, so he went down to play for this other team, and he's a pitcher for his main team. One of the positions he plays. He's pretty successful. Well, he went down yesterday, and there were really two things between yesterday and today. He was pitching, and a couple of kids hit some, monster shots off of him, and he's not used to that. One kid hit a ball, had to be 400 feet. I was out in the outfield fence, and this thing just took off, right? And, it was crushed. And I was waiting to watch him and see how he dealt with that adversity. He hasn't been used to a ton of failure, and the little bit he's dealt with, he hasn't necessarily dealt with great. A lot of these kids this age will put a bat down and get tears in their eyes, or let a negative thing, whether it's an error or a strikeout, carry on for the whole game. Um, but it was interesting to see. He got so mad that he came back to the next batter and just amped it up and threw even harder. And he wasn't happy. I think he put his glove over his head. Uh, but he handled it really well. And then they had another game tonight, and the coach said, "Hey, we'd love to have him come down tomorrow if you can." So look, it's a game. If he can get out there and play as much as he can, fantastic. So at first he was like, "No, I don't think I can play that. I'm a little bit sore." And I think really what he was saying is he didn't like losing. Um, but I convinced him when I committed that we'd be down there. So he went down tonight, and the team got destroyed. Um, but what I found so interesting was how his demeanor, just in warm-ups before the game even started, is completely different than it is with his own team. And he's the same kid, he's the same ball player, but just a small change in surroundings, and it's as though he's a different child in some degree in terms of his mannerisms. And I found it very interesting watching him. And nothing was really said. It's not like the kids treat him any differently. They cheer for him and and look, but it was really interesting to see how he kind of embraced the sort of role as a leader. And I thought that was really interesting, just how, in terms of um, the same kid with a little bit different surroundings, carries himself so much differently. Instead of kind of being the Chuck E. Cheese kid that wants to run around and play in the bin of plastic balls, he seems focused and almost leading, and it was really neat to see. The other takeaway I took from it was, again, how different people, and whether it's parenting, coaching, just in makeup of the kids, how the kids deal with losing. Like I said, the coach was telling me that their team loses routinely. Gets basically run ruled, every game. That's not fun for any kid. And my son's main team is used to they win a good portion of the time. Um, but yet these kids in this team keep coming out, keep playing. You wouldn't know before the game started. You wouldn't know if they were 19-0 or 0-19, and that's not an easy thing. So, and I actually sat there wondering how would the ball players from my son's main team handle it? Would they handle it the same way? And I don't know. As I raise my kids, I've always asked the question. Would you rather your kid graduate in the top 10% of a graduating class of 500, or the top one or two in a graduating class of 50? Kind of, would you rather be a big fish in a small pond, or just a fish in a big pond? It was interesting to see how this team, again, what a credit to the young men and the coaches and the parents that they show up every day. It's not easy, and you wouldn't know. They would go out and they play hard, and it was really impressive. And I think he's learning from that. It's contagious when you're in a team of success and kids don't deal with failure very well. They all think maybe that's how you react, right? And then here's another team a day later that is not as successful, but they handle it with such maturity. And it was really, I'm glad I made that choice to get him to play these couple of games, because just in that he gets to see a completely different perspective, way of handling things, whether it be the coach and the parenting, the team, how it's handled. So that was really neat. Fairly serious topic though, and I'm running out of time already because I've yacked here. And it does portray, go back to my journey a little bit. So my house today was filled with kids, and one, it brought back great memories for me, because I remember my summers as a kid was always spent with literally from sunrise to sundown, essentially at the mocks, playing wiffle ball, Nerf football, whatever, with my friend Steve and whatever friends we had around the neighborhood. But you lose that this day and age. We don't have neighborhoods where you just run around and grab kids, and the fact that there were 4 kids in and out of the house today playing outside, not video games, was really neat to see. Cooking some lunch and for them, but there was one little girl that's a guest of a neighbor I want to talk about. I met her a few times. Always so well mannered, so respectful. When I said we had to leave to go to a baseball game, can I come? She's complimentary of my children. Your dress looks beautiful. Your daughter's so nice, and Landon's such a good ball player. She's complimenting me. Wow, you're a great dad. I mean, this is a 14-year-old girl saying, complimenting my parenting. But came to talk with her the person she's with, a neighbor of mine, and she's had some issues. She's a troubled young girl, in some ways, and so she was clutching on to our family dynamic, and she asked to go to the baseball game, so I took her, and then the kids hadn't seen their mom a little bit this week, so Heather came down to come home, so I drove home with this young lady, and she opened up with my daughter at the game about some of her situations, and there were really a couple of things that really were tough. She says, "Look, I made some mistakes. I did some bad things when I was younger. She's only 14, and she's adopted now. But she was telling me how her biological mom explained to her some things that just a kid should not hear, certainly be taught or told, about how using your body to attract the opposite sex is a way to get attention. To have a 14-year-old be telling me this is what her mom taught her. She hasn't seen her mom in 4 years. Her biological mom doesn't know where she is. Police are looking for her. She was adopted by a family, and this poor little girl feels like something of an outcast. She feels at home with my neighbor. She's with her neighbor because the rest of her family, which includes 7 siblings, is on vacation, and she's not with them because they're afraid of how she would relate to them. And I didn't want to ask much detail. I didn't want to pry, and but I'm wondering, if she's around my kids, would she be violent? Would she hurt somebody? She's a sweet little kid, And she comes to tell me that one of the daughters is a real trigger, and she's done some things like taken her stuff in the past and all these things. And I'm wondering how maybe this little girl that that they're afraid of, that sets her off, is a young kid, 8, 9 years old. The girl's 22 years old. A 22-year-old can't cope with a 14-year-old, so the 14-year-old has to stay home while they're on vacation. All she kept talking about was her past, her family, her parents won't. She was basically saying how she'll never see me again or my neighbor again because her parents had a falling out with my neighbor, and there was just so much that she was saying that was just so wrong. And all I could do was just try to tell her that, hey, this isn't your fault. Those things that happened to you are not your fault. You may have made mistakes, but she kept talking about the mistakes, why she couldn't do things, as if this is what she's told on an almost daily basis. And it's shocking because she'll never get past them. And they allow her to get past them, it seems like. And I don't know enough about it. I guess what I'm trying to say, though, is dropping this little girl off at the house across the street. I shouldn't say where, but anyway, dropping her off in my driveway. I was really tormented because, I can't save the world. I don't want to save the world. But this young child is going to go back to a home where she didn't say these words, but she just doesn't want to be. She doesn't feel loved. She feels loved elsewhere. You can tell by the way she was kind of gravitating towards us and the family dynamic here. And she's not alone in this world. There's so many other kids like this through the foster programs and everything else. And it was just a difficult evening for me because I can't get out of my head, and God, I wish I could do something to help or say just the right words, and I just feel helpless, because she basically said, I'm not going to see my neighbor for another 3 years probably because my parents won't let me. She got a new outfit. She said I probably will get yelled at for this outfit because it's too provocative. It was a skirt and a shirt. And then it brought me back to my journey, where you'll be reading about them, writing about one right now, where there were a couple of instances where my journey wasn't all happiness and great families and things like that. And not that there were bad families, but there were some circumstances that really left me conflicted and so forth. So I'm running out of time. I love you guys. Thanks for letting me share. I just didn't really know what to do or what to say, and I just need to talk to somebody. So thank you. I love you guys. Have a great day.